One moment. Hi, the time is 1 o'clock, and it's time to go ahead and begin. The caption is on. We are recording. We're good to go. First of all, thank you all, everyone, for joining us today. It's a very interesting and provocative topic for administrators. A couple of things as we begin. First of all, on Zoom, we try to limit up to 6 people on the Zoom screen. It keeps it a little bit easier for our interpreters to keep up. So I would ask everyone to hit stop video unless you're called upon. If you have a question, you simply can click start video and you will appear to ask your question. That or the chat box is also available to you to submit a question. Jessica will keep tabs of that, I as well. And that way we can have an interactive discussion as we proceed. That's a pretty easy rule to follow. Second of all, people are asking about how long our sessions are lasting. They're averaging an hour and 15 minutes. That being said, I'm going to turn it over to Jessica to talk to us about mental health. She is a counselor at the Lexington School for the Deaf. I have a lot of respect for her, and I know her and many other faculty members there at the Lexington School. She's a graduate of Boston University as well, works for the Lexington School. She also worked for the Learning Center and was on staff there. She did her graduate at Gallaudet University and became a school counselor there by receiving her master's degree. And she has been at the Lexington School since 2016. With no further ado, I would like to introduce her. She'll be talking about mental health as well as what's happening with coronavirus, the impact on our students, as well as the protests that have currently come into the news in our country. A lot to dialogue about today, lots to discuss, and I look forward to Jessica's comments and what she has to say. Thank you for joining us. Take it away.
Thank you so much. I'm really thrilled to be with all of you today. I will open up with some comments, but I will definitely save time for you all to have an opportunity to share as well. Obviously, with the coronavirus pandemic, there is a significant impact on all of us. This is impacting staff, students, our families, and it can be very emotional, as well as having a toll mentally and on various levels. So I think it's important that we're mindful about what strategies we're using. All of our lives have been literally changed, and that happened overnight. We know that everyone is stuck working remotely, they are at home, and that limits our ability to socialize with others. We're doing a lot of our work on screen, virtually with Zoom, and very little of our contact is direct face-to-face work. It can be very isolating. Our image of our own reality has been shifted. And we are now living with a lot of unknowns, an increase of unpredictability. We are also living with new additional fears that are unprecedented, things we never expected to face in our lifetime. Most of us know people who've been impacted directly by the pandemic and have experienced various types of loss as well. Imagine the tremendous amount of anxiety and stress and loneliness and grief and sadness that is creating for all of us. Not only do we as administrators, teachers, and staff in the educational field need to be focused on our duty to take care of students and take care of them academically and socially and emotionally as well. But while we are here in our era of distance learning, we also need to be thinking about taking care of ourselves and taking care of our staff as well. We all need this support, not just the students. Supporting our students at this time can be emotionally exhausting. For us to maintain the ability to support our students, we really need to make sure that we are getting that emotional support ourselves for our own psychological well-being. Self-care is more critical now. Although we want to be superheroes in service to our students, we're also human. So that being said, I'd like to open it up to you and give you the floor for any of your initial thoughts, concerns. How have you been supporting your staff so far? If you have any tips to share with the group, or any questions that you may have that you'd like to raise, the floor is yours.
Hi there, my name is Jack Johnson. I come from the Tennessee School, and several people on my team are here in this session today, which makes me very happy to see them on the participants list. I think that we probably are all interested in knowing some strategies that we can use as we prepare for school reopening. I think we as administrators, school counselors, and the like want to be more prepared to help our staff re-enter and to know what to do. Not only that, but we are dealing also with parents. So if you can give some tips.
Thank you. It's a good question. Would anyone else like to respond to that first? Since no one seems to be volunteering, I'll go ahead and share some of my thoughts. I would say honestly here at Lexington, we're still figuring a lot of that out. We are trying to figure out how to work with students while we also, at least among my team, continue our weekly meetings. And one of the issues that we see coming up is about how to support staff. When it's time to come back to school, how are we supporting them then? And even now, obviously, we're not back at school yet. So before we get to that phase, we need to start putting things in place. So one of the things that comes to mind for sure is trying to take advantage of the time now to be talking through these things. And I would definitely think about, I don't know at all of your respective schools what you're doing, but if you have department meetings, doing those ahead of time. Also thinking about whether you'll have 1 or 2 days before school actually starts, or a week, depending on the schedules of your individual schools. If it's a week in advance of the return to school, taking that time for actually processing everything that is happening related to the coronavirus and the Black Lives Matter movement. Thinking about that will allow you to set up the appropriate support system and have that in place when everyone returns to campus, and give staff an opportunity to really talk about how it's impacting them. And having the ability to do that will allow them to move forward and better support students. Does anyone else want to add? I don't want to take the floor on my own. I'm happy to entertain other comments.
Sure.
Hi, Jessie. My name is Patricia Schoenfeld, and I work with Jeff at American School for the Deaf. I'm the HR director there. I also worked at Lexington many years ago, so I'm familiar. We've had 2 things happening with us at the school. We've had staff working remotely, and we've also had staff on campus because we are a residential program as well. So currently we have 31 students living on campus, so we have staff that support those students. So I think one of the biggest factors in trying to make sure that staff are feeling connected and safe is communication. And I think that on our school, Jeff does twice a week he does communications. And we have a very big, we're very transparent. We update our staff on the guidelines, on the state, on the executive orders. So we keep staff as informed as we are, as it changes every day. We show appreciation, we show gratitude. We have open door policies, even via Zoom. We have, Zoom meetings. Recently, Jeff has been connecting with each department. How are we doing? What's going on? Recently, we did an employment wellness check where we sent a survey out to the staff saying, do you feel safe? Do you feel you're being communicated? How is your leadership team doing? How are you doing? How are you personally doing? And with that information, we were able to, Jeff actually started the groups. And so we have these groups, and basically to give people a platform to express their concerns, their fears. We don't know, we're in the same boat as everybody here. We're working on a recovery plan now, but that could change tomorrow depending on what happens with the state, what happens with the virus itself. Are we going to see a second wave? Are we on the downswing? I mean, there are so many moving parts. So, do we split classes? Do we bring kids? It changes. So as long as I think the staff knows that their leadership team is working toward that end goal, I think that gives them a sense of, a little bit of security also, to let them know, yeah, we don't know, but we're working and we're going to let you know. So, I mean, those are just a few of the things that we're doing at ASD.
Yeah, thank you. Does anyone else want to add as well?
This is Toya Roby from Kentucky School for the Deaf. We are thinking about a process. I think during NTI, we have our weekly mental health meetings, and just trying to get through NTI and all the hours each day, that kind of went to the wayside. We didn't formally meet. Now, teachers still shared concerns to the mental health team, but for that fact of it meeting and assessing formally. So we are making sure moving forward in our schedule with NTI that that mental health is a scheduled point in time. We're just trying to think about our process to identify during NTI. We hope not to open up, but she was just saying, we don't know what the state's going to do and how that could change. If you all have any thoughts on kind of that process for identification, I think what shocked us is our kids who we thought that were extremely resilient, and those kids who are going to blow out the ACT are our kids who went AWOL. Not all of them, but a significant number that just either refused to work, or one was on suicide watch briefly, and did share with the teacher how she was feeling. She did not want to share that with her parents because she didn't want them to worry. So I'm pleased that we have that relationship, that they're reaching out to us. But I guess I would like more of a systematic process that we're reaching out to our students during NTI, and that we're reaching out to staff. I love the fact of the wellness check. We did a thing every day with staff. We did roll call twice a day, and teachers checked in the morning. We did plus deltas at the end of the day, and then we did kind of updates or questions. And teachers through their deltas would say, I'm not feeling really good about this. So we really tried to address some of that stuff through our roll call. Even though the year has finished with our teachers, we're going to still use that same platform they loved it. In fact, one day we're like, okay, no roll call today. And like, no, we got to have roll call. So it was kind of their connection to everybody. And so we're going to use that same format to update them weekly on any changes, to keep them informed, so that I do a Sunday night email to all staff every Sunday, but we'll keep that separate just so teachers know that's where they go to, and they're already familiar and they're comfortable with that. So that's just kind of where we are.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing that. Are there others who'd like to add on to this? So I'm just reading something in the chat. This is from Barbara. And it says, I'm curious about whether schools are doing anything differently in light of George Floyd's killing and the protests. Are schools offering any supports in a new or different way in regards to that? Does anyone want to respond?
Yes, hi. My name is Bethany. I'm from the Tennessee school. I know that there are several others from my staff here. With the riots and the protests, Black Lives Matter, for me personally, I feel that this is a positive action in our country. I went to the Illinois School for the Deaf myself, and we, as the deaf community and deaf culture community, we love each other as close as brothers and sisters. And that had nothing to do with race. We grew up together. I had Black brothers and sisters, Indian brothers and sisters. There was no division within our school setting. And we all adored one another and learned tolerance. It wasn't expressly taught, and we were not exposed to those types of name calling or divisions or racial divides in our community. So I want to see our students learn more about that, because they may be seeing that, they may be exposed to that now that they're in their own homes. So that's something that I wanted to put out there.
That's a good point. Thank you. Any other perspectives? I don't see any right now. So it's tough because I can't speak for other schools, and it depends so much where you are all located. For Lexington, we are in a very diverse community, and that's reflected in our student body. We see that diversity among our students. And a lot of it depends on the perspective, where you're coming from. So if you're talking about the deaf community, and you see the students interacting with their peers from different backgrounds, we also want to be mindful about staff and be thinking about them too. And think about staff as a group. What are the staff's backgrounds? How is this impacting the staff? Maybe if they're a person of color, how can we be supportive of those staff, especially those who are most impacted? Thinking about people of color, or maybe people who are white and have family members who are people of color. But there are some people who have those connections to communities of color, and how are we supporting them? So that's something important for us to look at. Even though we may be talking about communities within the deaf community, and there may be a sense of more openness to diverse backgrounds, There's still, the target population right now is communities of color. Does anyone else want to add on to that?
Yes, hi there. I wanted to share a little bit about our department and what we have done for our school. Last Thursday afternoon, one of my staff members reached out to me. Because our school wants to address what's happening across the country. It's in line with our values. Lexington students, we have 94% of our students are students of color. Very small percentage are other. And so, I'm sorry, 94% is white, and we have a very small Black population, my mistake. And so they represent families, they represent, you know, our community. And so we had a meeting where we had an open discussion, a discussion about administration, how the messaging goes out, our faculty and our administrators' perspective on what's going on with the killing, the deaths that have occurred. Also, our counseling department discussed what we can provide for our students. Part of that was setting up small groups for class meetings. We have 18 high school classes, and so we've grouped those into 13 groups. So we have dedicated some time for discussion. We have 3 guiding questions ready for those class meetings. Thank you. And I feel like I'm forgetting something. I apologize.
No, I think that's pretty much it. Just talking about what we're doing with staff and how we're supporting staff, if you want to talk about that.
Oh, thank you. The letter from the administrators on their perspective has gone out. It was emailed to the full staff and faculty, recognizing what is happening in our community and also identifying some resources for adults to consider. For example, a resource was shared that particularly for preschoolers and youngsters who may not have the ability to understand what's going on, but how to address that with them, how to express that to them, and how to have an age-appropriate conversation with youngsters. There was an infographic that was included that showed stages of awareness as children developed cognitively in their understanding of people with racial differences.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I think it's really helpful. Does anyone else have anything to add? Does anyone have other ideas or things that you have already been mulling over as it could help with the process of preparing to get back to campus, providing support, especially considering Black Lives Matter, the recent killings? Have you heard things from your staff? Any issues that have already come up or come to your attention?
Hi, everyone.
Hi.
My name is Brian, and I am from the Tennessee School for the Deaf. I am the HR director here at our school. I had a meeting with one of our deaf staff members, and as part of that meeting, I wanted them to know about our employee assistance program that's available to them. They said that they were uninterested, and when I questioned them on that, they said they felt as a deaf person that confidentiality was not kept, particularly when bringing in an interpreter and a counselor. As a response to that, I reached out to try to address what kinds of supports might be available through our EAP resources so that I could sort of describe those resources to our deaf staff members. EAP includes counselors, and we do have the ability to sign with those counselors. So those are options here in Tennessee. So our staff does have access to those counselors, and hopefully they'll feel more comfortable in using EAP as a service available to them as an employee of the state.
Okay, yeah, I'm going to share a little bit more information about what we've been doing at Lexington. And some of the things we're doing, one of which is providing mental health resources. It's important that some of the information be coming from us, mental health care providers, and including information about available telehealth services. That is the way that supports are being provided to staff. That allows for a video phone conversation. If it is medically related, then it would be with a board certified doctor, or alternatively, if it is mental health related, then it would be talking to someone who is a licensed practitioner. And we are sharing information about that with staff. I also wanted to share a bit about some of the different supports that we are providing at Lexington, and then I'll turn it back over to you. Some of the information is coming in the form of communication from administrators, updates, messages. We are sending those out regularly, as some of you have mentioned as well. Every week, we also have the PBIS team, which is the Positive Behavioral Interventions and Support team. They are sending information out by email, and it includes, among other information, a mindfulness tip. There's an exercise or activity that they can do on their own. This is intended for staff to practice mindfulness. Those are going out weekly, and staff also have access to a number of other physical exercise videos. They are provided by our gym teacher. They include different types of activity, including dance from our dance instructor, and those videos are posted almost daily, and so staff have access to that. We are also providing all staff with a gift of a self-care day, a day they can take off for purposes of self-care and use however they need to between now and the end of the school year. We also had a staff appreciation week that recently happened. And during that, we hosted something called a sip and see. That was a time for people to be together on Zoom. And it was an opportunity for boosting staff morale, changing some of the energy about how we're connecting. And that's some of what we have done at Lexington. Those are the kinds of supports we've been providing so far. I want to turn it back over to you if anyone else wants to add on to that. Sure.
Hi there, my name is Russell, and I am the superintendent of the Lexington School for the Deaf. One thing that I would like to add is working closely with the HR department and the HR director. HR has so much access to information and resources for your employees. I touch base with them weekly to see that we are doing enough for our staff members, to see that we're doing too much or too little, and to review the steps that we've taken. So I get that information. Also, emails are sent out, school-wide communications are sent out. They can also, staff are also invited to reach out to me with any follow-up questions that they have for me to carry to HR. In the last 3 months, we know that there's no template for what it is that we're going through. There's no guideline for dealing with the coronavirus and its implications to our employees. And so leaderships of all different types have given some tips, and you know, some things that are said may sting, they may offend, but I have to keep in mind as a leader, it is not about me. It is about what our staff needs, what my faculty needs, and what the student as the at the end of the day needs. And we are making our way day by day. I believe that that is key, working closely with your HR department and also our PBIS coordinator. They are on the ground with students, and I hear information and feedback from them, and I make changes accordingly. When resolution is needed, I address that in order to raise morale and keep morale high amongst our people. You know, it's been exhausting, all the things that we've been going through, and so providing support continuously can be exhausting as well. As Jesse mentioned, sip and see. Many people joined our conversation. It went on for 2 hours. Some were drinking coffee, some were drinking other things. And we'll be doing that again on Friday. So again, there is no template, there is no guidebook for what it is that we're going through. My tip to everyone is to keep your eyes, ears, and minds open to whatever is needed.
Thank you so much, Russell. Yes, there are a lot of unknowns, and it's true. It's a day at a time, day by day. We're used to living with some planning ability, some order of predictions, and we just can't do that. Even, for example, for birthday parties and things that we've really taken for granted, what do we know about what that's going to look like? And how are we going to figure out the appropriate supports for staff and for students? And you're right, it's day by day. That's really where we are all in this together and where we all come in on supporting each other. It's really a collaborative effort that's going to get us through. There may be some people that have ideas, things you've already tried, and our ability to really share those as resources will only better allow us to support our staff.
Hi there, this is Jeff. I'm from the American School for the Deaf. My HR director, Patricia, spoke a little bit about what we have done here, but I think it's important to emphasize a couple of things. Well, perhaps 3 things. Sending out what we call the Employee Wellness Survey. It was very simple. It was 10 questions, easy to respond, and it was a very important check-in on our staff to see that everyone was doing okay, if they were getting the support that they needed, or if they needed to make a call for more support. We were able to open that up to a text box so people could make comments and give us feedback. Many of our staff like that. Just asking, how are you doing? We're not talking about your student, your family, we're talking about you as an individual. How you doing? And people did express their thoughts and feelings. That wellness check was an easy way to briefly check in, and it showed great support for our staff. 90% said they're doing great, but there were those 10% who really needed something. And you're always going to have someone who's going to find an opportunity to complain, but it was an opportunity for us. And I was really happy with the survey. The comments were valuable. I was able to see some ideas come in from the comments. And I think that that was one thing that any school could do. Another idea, Monday and Thursday, we have a vlog for our staff, and it has been fantastic. We also have hosted meetings with the teacher groups. We also have residential dorm counselors, those types of things. And because again, it's been mentioned, we do have students on campus. So people that are actively serving students, we have them in a group. Also, we have 5 shifts throughout the day serving those students. And so our HR department has been invaluable in giving them support, asking people how they're doing, touching base with them. We've done that a couple of times since school closed. We also have what we call our school team meeting. That's where we're able to check in with all of the administrative level of people, just get a pulse check of how people are doing, any concerns that they want to bring to the table. And I can be aware and provide support as much as I can. The bottom line, again, it's about communicating with people. It's about reaching out and being open to their responses. It's about letting people know that we are, that love prevails. And, one person starts a comment and then, a conversation starts, and then sometimes things can be twisted and it turns to a different story. And so I want to be a part of those conversations so that I can sort of squelch any rumors or myths that are out there and be open to communicating. You know how rumors start. If you don't do anything to stop them, it's really hard to, it can cause some real and true damage. And so I try to nip it in the bud as often as I can.
Thank you. Yes. And you're making an important point about communication. That really is key right now. Anything that anyone can do to maintain regular communication with staff so that they are aware, because we know that they're all going to be dealing with their own stuff. But if we're communicating with them, then there will be a number of impacts on how they're handling things. And you've already talked about how that check-in is really critical. Just knowing how they're doing, that we're checking in on students, they're providing those services, but really realizing that the staff, how are they doing individually, is so important, and that they're supporting each other. I do have a question I'd like to ask the group as well. This is something connected with staff. Have you noticed anything change with staff behavior? Have you noticed any changes in work performance among your staff? Any change in their demeanor? Are they appearing differently? Are their levels of involvement changing? What are you noticing?
I hate to take the floor back, but I did want to say, sorry. Some of our staff have increased their performance. It seems that they are more in line with working remotely. Other staff simply just can't do it. And I'm not really talking about teachers. Teachers in general are doing okay, but really just, you know, I'm really talking about the administrative staff, people in the business office and HR. I've noticed that they're different people. It's almost unreal, you know, like someone who's extremely productive, I have to say, where have you been all my life? And then others that are struggling in an online environment, they really need the personal connection with others and the interaction. Video meetings, you know, I sometimes have staff members that are more responsive and prefer that method rather than emailing. Others do not. And so, you know, I just check in with them based on video from time to time. So I know exactly what you're talking about, Jessie.
And you just said something really important that I want to highlight. We need to be able to match and meet people where they're at. So it's not going to look the same for all staff, or even within the same department or team. We really need to meet people individually where they are. We are all human, and what does that look like in terms of our empathy? And at times like this, we need to show even more empathy than usual. We need to be empathetic. We need to be mindful. We may not really know the full situation of what's going on in the lives of our staff. What's going on their own personal life. They may be showing up on Zoom and appear fine, but we don't know. So that's why it's even more important to do those check-ins, not to assume anything. And you can't assume that everyone's experience right now is the same. Everyone's experience is their own. And it really goes back to being able to take care of each other.
Yes, thank you.
Does anyone else want to add on to this? Something that Jeff has said, or in response to my question, anything that you're noticing among staff, any changes?
So I'm going to piggyback on Jeff, and considering we work together. We've seen an enormous amount of staff come, you know, really step up and do a great job. And I think what we're looking at, all of us, is a new kind of normal. You know, things are not going to go back to the way they were. So we have to now go forward. You know, we have staff who love Zoom meetings because they're more accessible. We have staff who prefer in person. We're going to have to find a happy medium going forward. How are we going to, you know, support all staff? And how are we going to do this? Because this new world we're in right now, it's not going to go back to what it was in January. You know, we may get some normalcy back, but we're not going to get it all back. And so it's really important that we see and evaluate and assess what our staff needs now and how they are, and try working toward that when we do go into recovery, because we do have a lot of staff. I had a meeting this morning, and normally it would be so hard to pull somebody in, and I texted them and I said, can you jump into the Zoom for a minute? Bam, they were there. You know, and we were able to solve the issue. So there's a lot of positive that comes out of something like this as well. So, you know, it's all a matter of, you know, trying to find out, like you're right, Jessie, we have to see what our staff, you know, who are the ones who like that, who needs contact, stuff like that. I mean, it's going to be a very interesting few months.
Yeah, absolutely. And Zoom has been helpful in a number of ways in terms of reframing, giving us an opportunity to reframe. Zoom allows us to really connect more quickly. It's much more easy. So it's good to have that. But there are other sides to Zoom. It leads to a kind of fatigue at the end of the day after being on Zoom for hours and hours that is very different than the workload of being in touch in person. It's good to think about the many different ways of looking at Zoom. Anything else to add? Does anyone want to add anything else onto the discussion? If not, then I'd like to go back to the question I posed in terms of changes in staff behavior. Go ahead. I was going to share an example, but go ahead.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I was just going to say that our staff behavior, that we got closer. As I talked about, we did the roll call twice a day. So I always said it looked like racehorses when we were on the Google Doc and everybody's on there at the same time and you can see everybody typing. So our protocol, I would have some kind of funny cartoon at the top. I would highlight in my color and then just start off with their goals for the day or anything that was pertinent. And then everybody would check in with good morning. And then some days I would say, you know, behind your name, what has been a challenge that we have overcome as a team, or something that would kind of unite them of what has been your best day so far. And then during the Plus Delta, they would share, you know, I feel like we can openly share our feelings with each other without being judged. So if anything, our behavior, I think our staff started trusting more with each other and with leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. It is really helpful to have those opportunities for connection. I'm wondering what that will look like once we're back in person. Well, whenever that is that we are back together. Will people feel more connected, or will there be a sense of that disconnecting us in some ways in the change?
We're really intrigued about that. And we did a leadership or a survey with satisfaction of leadership, and then what do you need for NTI training, PD, just kind of an end of the year pulse check on where staff is moving forward to make sure that we're meeting their needs, because we've definitely got to have their feedback and partnership.
Yeah, you're right. I'm definitely wondering about that. What's going to happen? I'm wondering if any of you have noticed, again, in terms of staff, anything maybe that you've heard, are staff feeling more low emotionally or lonely, isolated? Any of your staff that live alone? Do you know of any staff at your schools that have been feeling any depression or low mood? Any support that you know it's been given in terms of that? Yeah, Russell.
Hi, again, I'm Russell. I want to say it was 2 or 3 weeks ago that I received a report from a faculty member, one concerned about another staff person who was at home alone, not really reaching out, not really connecting on Zoom. And months went by, and we were wondering about the toll on mental health. And I heard about that, and I immediately reached out to our HR director and said, what is appropriate? What can be done to reach out to them? A wellness check with that individual. What resources could come from our HR department, as well as you know, healthcare types of offerings. And so it doesn't, you know, of course that person said everything's fine, but others knew that they were not doing well with the isolation. And so checking in with a person, you know, a couple of times a week, just saying, hey, how you doing? Laying eyes on them, making a phone call and chatting with them. Hopefully that will suffice until the end of until we get to the end of this. There is no quick fix. And I think it's about the repetition of check-ins. I also keep notes. I have, you know, I have notes where I check in with my people, you know, day 1, day 2, just to keep track of who's been checked in with and who hasn't. When a person gets to the point where they feel so disconnected and isolated, and, you know, in this shelter in place, this is now month 3. We have some plans for opening this coming Monday, but this is unprecedented. This is something that we've never been through before. So keeping in touch, making phone calls, check-ins with those employees, that has been my method so far, and it has worked well. But I think that, Jessica, you're right. What is this going to look like when we're all back in the same building? That's a lot to think about. That's a lot to carry, and that's a lot to discuss with our peers. Making a strong plan and having that in place. I think that's key. I had a meeting where we talked about having staff in the building for a few days so that we can have group chats again, possibly having staff so that they aren't so overwhelmed, so that they can be back together. And so I think that that's going to be our approach in going back to week, and that's some work, and that's something that we'll be working on in the next few weeks. I wonder if you have any input about helping one another as staff members and as faculties.
Yeah, thank you, Russell. I do think that's important, especially in terms of maintaining that level of awareness of staff, how they're doing, not assuming that everyone's okay, hoping that they are, but not assuming that they are. And making sure that whatever you've been doing, that you continue doing that. If it is successful by doing check-ins, then something like that. Otherwise, the wellness survey that was mentioned, whatever you are doing to maintain communication and updates with staff, having regular department meetings and having a check-in be a part of that. Also, the roll call that was mentioned. All of those are ways to make sure that staff, if they need to, can be connected with appropriate services. Patricia?
I also think we were talking before, when we use the wellness survey, that Jeff has been meeting with the departments himself. And I think that goes a long way toward opening up communication with staff to see how they're doing. And I've noticed that a lot of our departments are having Zoom get-togethers, and not just work-related, you know, pretty much in the evenings and getting together and spending a little more time together. So I hear that just through the grapevine. And I think that that goes a long way. And for Jeff to, or any, you know, executive director to open up some meetings is really important. It really, I think it helps the staff connect to what's going on, and to hear it from Jeff himself is really nice. And from custodial straight up to the administrative team. And I think that that was really important. And this is the second round that we've done. And I think it's been really helpful. As far as opening up, you know, we're working on a plan, and I know Jeff is going to be leading a recovery discussion in a couple of days. Our departments, our administrative departments right now, like for example, I can use HR as an example. I go in twice a week in my office, but there's not a lot of people there. And the people who work with me come in once a week on different days. So nobody's there at the same time. We've done a lot of work from home, and the business office, it really has done an amazing job setting up remotely. So because we have staff on campus right now, I think it's important for HR to be there occasionally to let the staff know, hey, we're here, you need to pop in, please come in. And I think that's gone a long way to helping too, to know that there's somebody there. So again, it's transparency, communication, letting staff know that we're hearing you, we're listening, and we're asking for feedback. And when we get the feedback, we act on it.
Yeah, in relation to what you just shared, I always think about mental health and how powerful it is to acknowledge mental health. Just having that knowledge that you're open, that we're open, that will provide support, whatever kind of mental health issues our staff are facing, having the awareness that it can be addressed and that HR will work with them, as some of you have already said. Also knowing that they can always reach out to each other, figuring out how to best put those supports in place for staff. Does anyone else want to add anything before we wrap up? We do have a little bit of time left, just checking the clock, but anyone else want to chime in here? Okay, I'm not seeing anyone, so for those of you who are administrators or school leadership in any capacity, we're in a new territory now, and you are all dealing with these new norms in this unprecedented time. We've talked about the coronavirus outbreak. We've talked about what's been going on with the death of George Floyd. There will always be significant events that will impact us, and that won't change going forward. But the discussion we're having now is a good opportunity to build foundation, to know that we have that collaboration in place, that there is a system, that we are thinking about how to best support each other, so that whatever plans you're putting in place now, whatever you've already put in place, that is something that can be sustained going forward. Of course, things will change and you'll always find better approaches, but what we're doing now is a great start. Does anyone want to take a turn, add in anything? Jeff.
All right. Very few people are commenting. I just wanted to check in with you to see if there are any other issues or things that you would like to have discussion about related to mental health as participants. These are new times that we're going through. This is new territory, and in light of that, we're still collecting information from you. For example, I reached out to a few schools that are in large cities, urban areas, and the impact on their students and staff because of the fear around what's happening in the vicinity. I'm much more in a rural area outside of a larger urban population, so my concerns are less around that. Of course, I do have concerns for my students that live in various cities around the state. So I'm wondering if any of you are in urban areas, for example, Atlanta, that comes to mind, LA, New York City. I know Lexington, you're in a hot spot. I'm wondering about any other areas, urban areas like that, if you're seeing large impacts. I'm just curious about that, and if any, and if not, if no one else has anything to say, I'm okay with that too.
Yeah, I'd like to add on to that. I also know that there are some differences depending on where the schools are. Some of us have a smaller school campus or population than others. And smaller schools tend to be a little bit more easy to do that kind of outreach and contact with staff. As schools get bigger, then it can be more challenging in terms of how you're approaching some of this. Does anyone else have other thoughts anything you want to share on anything we've talked about, just a general opportunity for you to take the floor.
All right, this is Jeff. You know, that's okay. I know we've all had a lot on our minds and a lot to talk about with these CEASD meetings. I want to thank you, Jessica, for your wonderful presentation, your thoughts and your resources today. I know that the participants were very enthusiastic about hearing from you. This Thursday will be a bit of a different CEASD format. We will have 4 moderators this Thursday. Our topic is about recovery planning. What's happening this fall? What's happening this summer? What will this fall look like? Making those plans to return to the campus and starting school. So that's the topic we're looking forward to for Thursday. That actually will be our last of our web seminars. This Thursday is the last one until June 18th, or sorry, 28th. We will, no, 18th, June 18th, we will have a town hall in which everyone is invited to check in, exchange information, talk about how you're doing. After that, on the 24th, the CEASD board will have a meeting, a private meeting, to talk about developing some other sessions for the summer. We don't want them as often as we have been doing because it is summer, it's a break. So we are playing with the idea of weekly sessions. So we hope to see you there. We hope to see you often. We hope that you are well and safe. Thank you so much to our wonderful interpreters. Everyone take care. Bye-bye.
Yes, thank you so much. I just want to say it was very nice to meet all of you. Thank you so much. And